Hi guys, since we're approaching the end of the year, I decided to look back at the year and see what knives I actually carried the most this entire year. And I've narrowed it down to just 4 knives. So if you were to stop me on the street and ask me what I was carrying this last year, 99% of the time I'd have one of these 4 knives in my pocket.
All right, buddy, what's in your purse? I mean, pocket.
What? Now, I didn't cherry pick these like some of the comments will probably suggest. You can look back in my Instagram, which I didn't post too much this year, but you'll see these knives sprinkled in throughout the year. And again, if you were to stop me on the street and ask me what I was carrying, one of these 4 knives was in my pocket the vast majority of the time.
So is there something in your pocket?
Now, I will leave links to where you can get some of these knives below if you're interested. Some of these are affiliated links and some of them are not. Also, I currently don't have any affiliation with any of the knife companies in today's video. Just lost power. And it's back! We're back! We're broadcasting live. Starting off the year is one of my all-time favorites, the Spyderco Manix 2. If I had to pick a top 5 folding knives of all time, the Manix would probably make the list. I absolutely love this knife and I currently own 3 of them. This one right here is my first one and you can see it is well loved and used a lot. Now the second one that I bought, if I remember correctly, was a Blade HQ exclusive, and this was in CPM M4, one of my all-time favorite steels. And then the third one right here was sent to me along with some of the other knives in this video by Jared over at Neves Knives. Be sure to go subscribe to his channel and tell him that I sent you. This Manix 2 is in Rex 45 steel and it is an absolute beast. This has a ball bearing lock that is very similar to the Axis lock in its operation, and it is one of my favorite all-time favorite lock types due to its ease of opening and closing. Now, as you can see, Spyderco offers this knife in all kinds of different variations, and you really can't go wrong for a performance knife with the Manix 2. It slices well, it opens and closes well, it's lightweight depending on the variation you get, and there's a lot of different variations and exclusives with this knife. Now, the next knife on the list is the Kizer Drop Bear. Now, in the box of stuff that Jared sent me was this guy right here, the Kizer Drop Bear. Now, I did do an entire video dedicated to this knife, which I'll link below. So if you want to see a more detailed review on this knife, definitely go check that video out. But this is a great knife in terms of its usability. I really don't know if I have a knife that opens and closes easier than this knife right here. For me personally, the action is simply butter. It is just so good. The Axis lock design is about perfect. I believe that the spring tension can be changed as well, giving this knife a much more custom feel in terms of opening and closing. Now, Kizer does make a lot of different variations of the Drop Bear. This one is a more expensive one in the S35VN blade steel and carbon fiber scales, but cheaper options do exist without sacrificing any of that action goodness. Now, in the review that I did have on the Kizer Drop Bear, I did have some minor complaints with this knife, such as the steel hardness was a little bit low for my personal liking. But it's not a deal breaker in my opinion. You still get a very usable knife, and that's why I found myself carrying this knife a lot. Now, the next knife on the list is also a Jared knife. It's his fault, go blame him. And this is the Volsteed Raccoon. This is also an Axis lock design. Can you see a trend developing here? Now, this is a more budget-oriented knife around the $40 to $60 price range, depending on where you buy it. And for that price, it's an amazing knife. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a better action at a similar price point. At least one that actually works well and cuts stuff. This knife is very heavy duty, and with its 14C 28N blade steel, you actually get pretty good edge retention for what it is. Also, 14C 28N is very easy to sharpen and takes a very fine razor edge. This is a real workhorse of a knife, and I've carried it a lot in that capacity. Now also, Volsteed makes a large variety of different steels and scale material for this model, and it's definitely a knife worth checking out. The action on this knife is also really good. Now, last on the list, which is a knife that I'm actually carrying right now, is a knife that was sent to me by Mike Emler. His YouTube channel is Mike Emler Crazy Sharp. Go check him out as well and spam his comments. Let him know I sent you. Now this knife is the Kunwu Knives Chad in PM60 steel. Now he sent me this with no information about it, and I didn't do any research on this knife before I started carrying it. Now the past month or so I've been carrying this has been a true blind test and review of this knife. And I didn't know what steel it was, and I wasn't familiar with the company who makes it. Now one thing that I did notice about this knife as I was carrying it is that it never really seemed to dull a whole lot doing anything. Every time I was sharpening something, I'd pull this knife out of my pocket to see if it needed sharpening, and it was still sharp. The edge retention on this knife got my attention immediately in a true 100% blind test. Now, after a month or so of carrying it, I did end up doing some research on it and looked up some information and put it on the hardness tester and about jumped out of my pants. Because the PM60 steel that this knife has is capable of some very high hardness numbers. And this was absolutely no exception because it tested at 67.5 HRC, and suddenly all of that edge retention made sense. Now this knife is on the expensive side at around $250, $260. And I'll probably do a full review on this knife at some point, but I do believe you get a lot for your money at that price point, because this is one of the best edge retention knives that I currently own. And it should be because it's 67.5 HRC. Now the axis lock design is obviously one of my favorites, and it's about perfect. Now there's a lot of small details about this knife that just make it awesome, and it's also the reason that I'm currently carrying it. I wish we could go over every single one of those tiny little details about this knife, but we'll have to save that for a dedicated video. Now that's about it. That's all I was carrying 99% of the time in 2024. Now all of these knives do make great gifts. You can't go wrong with giving a knife. Christmas is coming up, so if you're looking for a good knife to get one of these. I mean, seriously, I was carrying one of these knives like 99% of the time. If you would have stopped me in the street and asked me what I was carrying, it was gonna be one of these knives.
Just show me what's in your pockets.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I'm not wearing pants. My pants are over there. And giving a knife is something that just about anybody can appreciate, even if you're not a knife person. 2025 is going to be a different year, so I look forward to seeing what new knives I can find, and there will be some new knives coming up, and if my rotation changes throughout the coming year. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video. Also, let me know what you've been carrying this year down in the comment section below. Again, appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video. What do we have here?